Tonight, for the first time on Fox 23, and as far as we can tell on any station in Oklahoma, we are hearing from Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt and his thoughts on the state education funds possibly being misspent or not even making it to some public schools. There is a formal loft investigation underway, and last week we found out what they're going to hone in on. The 5 areas being focused on in Oklahoma for the Department of Education for possible mismanagement or misspending is federal title funds, school resource officer and security funds, maternity leave reimbursement for public school districts, funding for inhalers to be placed in all public schools, and what happened to some pay raises for teachers. The loft investigation is a compromise meant to address concerns brought by a group of Republicans in the Oklahoma House. Last month, this letter was released by House Appropriations Chairman State Representative Mark McBride and accused State Superintendent Ryan Walters of neglecting his duties as superintendent in order to spend more time traveling and appearing on cable news and other political functions.
It's time that we take the next step and look at this a little broader maybe, but as far as them saying investigate, there is a lot of stuff going on. They just aren't privy to it.
The investigation McBride called for did not materialize because House Speaker Charles McCall said a majority of Republican members was needed for an investigation into possible impeachment to begin. So as a compromise, the loft investigation was formed instead. On the other side of this, State Superintendent Ryan Walters held a news conference at the state capitol last month calling for his own impeachment proceedings to begin.
I am calling on Speaker McCall and Mark McBride to begin their impeachment proceedings Monday. It is time for Oklahomans to have the answers.
Walters says his hands are clean. The legislature didn't clearly tell his agency how to spend some of the money in question. Walters accused Speaker McCall of asking for a new loft investigation into his agency, and he called it politically motivated because Walters and McCall are both considered to be possible candidates to be Oklahoma's next governor. Obviously, impeachment proceedings did not start, but the loft investigation is just now getting underway. While he was in Tulsa last week, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt stopped by Fox 23, and we spoke on multiple topics. We have not heard from him about the education loft report being crafted and investigated right now. I did not ask him about his feelings about State Superintendent Ryan Walters' job performance. I would have asked about mismanaged money if Joy Hoffmeister, Janet Barisi, or even Sandy Garrett was still in charge. Here is how the governor views the loft investigation underway right now. This is the first time we are hearing from him about the allegations that education money, some of it, is not getting to public schools. I've been covering your administration since day one. I've even covered you when you were candidate Stitt, and there were people in the Republican establishment going, who's this mortgage guy from Jinx who probably won't crack 3%? You have gone through very public budget battles with your own party, and you just said in the other question, record in education investment. If I went through all of that, and I'm hearing that possibly even $1 was misspent, I would be ticked off. How are you feeling about these accusations about the loft report? Are you interested in the loft report on education at all?
Absolutely. First off, we want to be the most transparent administration in history. I put Oklahoma's checkbook online. I told Oklahomans that we need to know where every dollar is spent. Let's make sure we audit it. And so I encourage loft. I encourage the auditor. We need to look at everything. There's 30,000 state employees, and if someone's doing something wrong, let's make sure that they're not, because we have a responsibility to take care of the taxpayers' money. So absolutely, we want that money on target. But I also understand the realities of politics, and there's people that sometimes are going after and weaponizing their office or doing this or doing that. And so let's see what the report says. Do we want this to transparent dollars? Absolutely. Let's hold people accountable, but let's not also jump to conclusions and say this guy's doing something wrong. Let's look at the data when it comes in, and the big picture again. Which I'm very, very excited about, is we got school choice across the finish line. So now parents aren't stuck. If you're in a failing school district, if you're in a great school district, we're going to keep funding it, and we're doing more and more. But if you're in a failing school district, we want those free market business principles to give you options, and you can move to a Christian school, a private school, a charter school. We want that opportunity. Another school in district, we will have open transfer. That's been a huge game changer in other states, where now we're creating competition, and everybody has to get better when you inject competition into the education system. So those are the big things. Let's make Oklahoma top 10 in our education system, and let's make sure those dollars are getting on target. So I welcome those loft reports.
New at 6:30. For some reason earlier this year, Oklahoma became a meme, especially the Panhandle. It became so much of a meme, Colorado Governor Jared Polis got in on the fun and tweeted Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt asking, you can see there, what goes on here? To make things more interesting, this summer Polis became the chairman of the National Governors Association and Stitt became the vice chair. They were already kind of buddies being neighboring governors, but we just had to ask, has Stitt explained to Polis what goes on up there? You are now vice chair of the National Governors Association. Colorado Governor Jared Polis is the chair, and he tweeted about Oklahoma with an arrow pointed at the Panhandle saying, what goes on here? We'll put it up on the screen. Have you talked to him about what goes on in the Panhandle? Are you going to be visiting Guyman with the governor of Colorado? Or
Well, you know, we touch Colorado up there, and Jared Polis is a friend of mine, and he's probably having fun. But listen, what goes on in the Panhandle, some of the greatest hunting, some of the greatest people in our state. I love the Panhandle. There's a cow chip contest in the Panhandle, which is pretty fun. But in all seriousness, you know, our agricultural community, we feed the world. We fuel the world. We defend freedoms around the world in Oklahoma. And so great pork producers out there. I think we're #2 in the country in pork production and wheat and all the cattle production that we have. #2, I think, in cattle production in the country. And so anyway, great people in the Panhandle. And I'll put the Panhandle up against Denver any day.
Thank you so much for stopping by. We are not finished with our interview series with Governor Kevin Stitt. He is going for another tax cut, and this time after recent elections, he actually has some reinforcements. I'm working on that story for you for Fox 23 News at 6:30 on Friday.